Hello, everyone, and it's Wednesday again. It's a wonderful Wednesday, and we have another exciting show here. This time, we're going to the small dimension again. It's all about bugs, and it's about empathy, which is so important for us humans. Georgia, now I actually took that away from you. I just remembered I was going to ask you what we're going to do today. I got so excited, I apologize. But anyway, Georgia, tell us a bit more about the subject.
Yeah, so thanks, Christian. Yeah, this week we're talking to the bug chicks who collectively they recently won an award from the American Entomological Society, which is like the scientific organization in the United States that for scientists that study insects. And they won this award for their amazing public outreach and communication that they do regarding insects. And so the Bug Chicks consists of two women, Christy Reddick and Jessica Honecker, who are our wonderful guests today. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring them on. Jessica and Christy, welcome to the program. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us. As we say it in stereo, always.
It's because we're both from the same like Appalachia area, and that's how you respond to a thanks for coming.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, well, you two have been working together for a long time, so maybe you're synchronized a little bit. And thanks so much, and welcome to everyone in the audience who's joining us. We have Kit and Frankman and Bo and others who are out there. Thanks for joining. So yeah, why don't our title today is Learning Empathy Through Insects. And so you do a lot of outreach, and part of that is that you go to schools, as I understand it, with insects and other arthropods, and you use these insects to teach students skills like empathy, but also other emotional intelligence skills as well. So tell us a little bit about what it is that you do.
Yeah. So Jessica and I are both entomologists. We have our master's degrees from Texas A&M University. And so we started out in research, and we both do research. But when we got together, I sort of already knew that I wanted to blend video work and communication with arthropods, because I have a degree in theater. And so I was just kind of like, how do I glom everything together that I like? And I asked Jessica to join me on the last 6 months of my research in Kenya to help me film my work with camel spiders. I study big, giant camel spiders, and they're the coolest animals on the planet. And about a month in, after she saw me teach in some of the schools in Kenya, she was like, where do I sign up? How do I do this? And from that moment on, we have been sort of inseparable. And we do a lot of video work. We do a lot of what people are now calling SciComm, but when we started it, did SciComm, was that even a term when we started doing this? I don't think it was.
I think so. I think it was just these girls make bug videos.
Right.
And that was kind of it.
But I had always done these things where you go into classrooms, into schools with live animals. And there is something that is really special that happens when you have a student who is feeling a lot of fear about these animals, because they invoke emotion. You can't feel neutral when you're around a bug. You're either feeling fascinated or fearful or apprehensive, or you think it's apathy or you think it's neutrality, but really it is this response that we have to an unknown where we kind of just shut down and we kind of like recede a little bit. And I started using bugs as a way to talk about fear and limitations and what we're capable of. And when Jessica and I started to work together, we realized this is what we do. Like, we teach about like 6 legs and 8 legs, but we teach about overcoming obstacles that we place for ourselves and feeling like you are capable of anything. And we use bugs to do that.
Because it's such a natural connection, right? It's like Christy said, you go into a place where these kids or adults or whoever it is that we're teaching are already kind of amped up, good or bad, when we come in with these animals. And then it's a really natural progression to have someone hold something if they were afraid of it. They learn a little bit about it. And, the sort of older tagline that we still use to our business is fear to fascination. it's one of those things where it's not something that's measured in every single or measurable in every single workshop, but we have like obvious change in people. And so that's really something that kind of like drives us and keeps us going, is like, people feel awesome about themselves when they leave.
Yeah. 15 minutes ago, you didn't want to hold this giant roach. And now, like, we worked through this process of scaffolding you to feel more and more comfortable. Now you're holding it, you've named it, and you want to bring it home with you. And so something happens in that 15 minutes, something happens for students. And we hear all the time, and educators do this all the time, or parents do this. They go, yeah, you're capable of anything. But we don't know what that means until we feel capable of something.
Isn't the biggest fear that people would have, at least that would be for me, is that they get stung?
Yes.
Yeah, that's something that, when we ask people how they feel about bugs, and most of the people who say, oh, I don't like them, or I love butterflies, but I hate spiders, it's all because they're afraid they're going to be stung or they're going to be bitten. And a lot of that fear, in some cases it comes from an experience you have as a kid, but in a lot of those cases too, it comes down to things that they've heard from their parents. Oh, don't touch that, it'll bite you. Or things they see on TV, like top 10 most deadly scorpions or whatever the show would be. And so we're sort of inundated with this idea that these animals are bad and dangerous. And so yeah, that is a common fear for people, for sure.
Absolutely. And that they're a great way to talk about otherness, right? And so we as humans tend to think in sort of binary terms, right? You think, well, I'm me and I'm good. So if something's different than me, it must be bad. And so we have a tendency to put things in these two different buckets. But what we do is we teach that different isn't bad. Different is interesting. Different is something that you can learn about. And when we make this switch for students, and honestly, we called our new curriculum that we actually won the award for at ESA, we called it Different, which is social emotional learning using arthropods. And it's the first STEM and SEL curriculum to use bugs to teach students about blending in. We talk to students about words that they use inside their head to describe themselves. So like negative self-speak. We use these animals to talk about getting over fears, getting over limitations.
Preconceived notions of what people are capable of.
Yes, assumptions that we make.
Yeah.
One of my favorite ones is what's in a name. So we go through all these names, these common names of insects. So like assassin bug, death feigning beetle. All you heard was the word death. You didn't hear the word feigning. No one knows what the word feigning really means anymore. It's not a word that we use very often. Death faker. It fakes its own death when it's afraid. They're also called blueberry beetles. And so there are these things where a name can tell you how to feel about something, right? An assassin bug tells you it's dangerous. A ladybug tells you it's fine. Well, ladybugs are poisonous and they bleed from their knees, and that blood tastes really bitter, and it's dangerous to a small animal like a bird, but it's not dangerous to us. It's all about how we perceive these animals and putting ourselves in these animals' shoes. They're not dangerous. They don't have like poison in their blood because they're bad. They want to make it through the day. And when we frame it like that, like if you're talking to a bunch of 7th graders and you're like, do you sometimes just feel like you're trying to make it through the day? Everybody knows what that feels like. Everybody knows what that feels like. And when you say, well, bugs are also trying to make it through the day, there's this immediate like, oh yeah, it must be hard for them. Like they're dodging birds. They have to find something to eat. It's hot outside. There's a lot of concrete. There's cars. There's noises that humans make that block noises that insects make trying to find each other. So it unlocks this whole new way of experiencing the world. And that's the work that we do.
Well, that's so amazing. Maybe we can just where I was so stunned was to see. I went to your website, which is called thebugchicks.com, and it's absolutely wonderful. Maybe we'll put in the link to everybody so they can see this. And I clicked on the very first video, and I was blown over how fantastic, original, brilliant it is. So maybe. Georgia, can we just play that? Just so that people get a feeling what this is all about.
This is our first video we made like 12 years ago. So I'm just going to say that, and then I'm going to cower underneath my
marvel at the glory is what I will say.
as a preface. And yeah, and you were saying a little bit before the show, like you kind of started making these videos more, and then you've moved into like work in the classroom a little bit more, which you were just telling us about.
Yeah.
But I do think it's cool to see, let's see where the Bug Chicks started, their origin story.
Our origin story.
So, yeah, I'll go ahead and play that real quick.
Please do.
I love it.
Hi, I'm Christy.
And I'm Jess.
And we are the Bug Chicks.
Now, everyone has been afraid of insects at some point in their life, and that's okay.
Because everyone's been afraid of something at some point in our life. But we're here to teach you that if you can learn something about the things that you're afraid of,
you can turn fear into fascination.
But first, let's test you on the basics.
You gotta know the basics.
Uh-huh. Now, there are lots of creepy crawlies in the bug world.
Centipedes, millipedes, spiders, insects.
But today we are only going to focus on the insects.
And here are some characteristics that you can look for when trying to identify an insect. 1, the number of legs.
Insects have 6 jointed or segmented legs, and there are a lot of different types. Praying mantises have raptorial legs for grabbing prey, water boatmen have natatorial legs for paddling and swimming, and katydids have saltorial legs to help them jump really far. And cockroaches use their cursorial legs to run all over your kitchen at night. 2. As a general rule, adult insects have 2 pairs of wings.
But rules are meant to be broken, so flies have 1 pair, and there are hundreds of different insects that have evolved so they don't need their wings for flying anymore. And the wings have shrunk away, like on our friends the Madagascan hissing cockroaches. 3. Insects have 3 body segments.
They have a head, a thorax, and an abdomen. The legs and wings always originate from the thorax. Now you're entomologists. 4. Adult insects have compound eyes.
They see like we do, light and dark, shapes and movement. Imagine seeing the world through 50,000 television screens at the same time and being able to process that amount of information. And lastly, all adult insects have 1 pair of segmented antennae.
Antennae come in all different shapes and sizes, and they're like cell phones and nostrils and fingertips all in one. The ultimate utility tool attached right to their foreheads.
Now you know the basics.
Hey Jess, what are you doing?
Well, I've set up this photographic white box so that I could get some scientific pictures of my grasshopper. What are you doing?
I'm scaring you.
How so?
Jess, duh. I mean, it's obvious that I'm different from you, and everybody knows that people are afraid of things that are different from us, so boo!
Are you an insect?
Yes, I'm an insect.
Well, you know, even though insects do have some differences from us, we also have a lot of similarities.
Like what?
Do you have eyes?
Yes.
Do humans have eyes?
Yes.
Do you have a home?
Yes.
Do humans have a home?
Yes.
Do you have a family?
Yes.
Do humans have a
yes.
family?
Oh, right. Okay, fine. We do share a lot of similarities, but you have to admit that when it comes to body parts, insects take things to a whole new level of cool.
Absolutely. Insect superpowers.
Yeah.
The tympanum is just like our eardrum.
Except in grasshoppers, it's either on the abdomen.
Okay.
Now that I'm sweating because
I think it's
I know,
brilliant, really. It's,
I'm done torturing you for the moment, but I really love that, because I think it shows that even though your approach maybe has changed in the last however many years, you've gone from videos to like doing stuff in the classroom, like the core message really hasn't changed. You really looks like you started with, these are insects. They're sort of at first glance different, but not as different as you might think if you take a minute to put yourselves in their shoes, in their many hypothetical shoes.
it's so funny that you say that. We were just talking about our our core messaging earlier today. And I haven't seen that video in a long time.
I haven't seen it for probably 5 years.
And when we got to the place where we were talking about not being so different, like it is fascinating to see this trajectory over the last, I started doing this in 2004. Jessica and I started working together in 2007. And so like to see that now in 2021, we have this curriculum that combines social emotional learning with STEM, with bugs, it does feel like, oh, we're on target. Like we have always had a really strong compass for what we do. And that actually makes me feel really good. I was having a rough morning about our business and I was like, oh my God, what do I do? Oh my God. But honestly, we're at least consistent, Jess. I'll
take it.
Yeah, so I asked people in the audience what were some bugs that they don't like. I admitted that I can be a little bit afraid of spiders, especially if I haven't seen a spider in a long time. And I think this is a little bit what you guys are saying is like you can introduce people slowly to the point where they get comfortable holding an insect or something. I definitely notice when I'm encountering insects and bugs more often, I'm more comfortable with them. But that kind of goes away once I'm in more sheltered environment. Christian doesn't like wasps because he tripped into a nest.
Right.
Someone says they don't like palmetto bugs because they're huge and fly and they get in their plants. And then someone else is scared of centipedes. And so like, I guess like, when you work with students, are they particularly afraid of the bugs that you've brought oftentimes, or where are people usually starting off at?
I think that when it comes to people being afraid of certain bugs, I don't think that what we bring, with the exception of our spider, our tarantula, Beyonce, like, I don't think people are necessarily afraid of them. Sometimes we bring in like hissing cockroaches or something like that. And they are like, ew, gross, cockroaches, until they learn about it. And then they're like, can we keep one? And so,
right.
But I think for fear, it's usually, well, as long as you don't have a tarantula, as long as you don't have a spider. And we're like, well, sorry, we do.
It's funny, the people in the chat have really hit on sort of the big ones, right? Palmetto bug. So I lived in Florida, and I know the palmetto bug is a big cockroach. It's an American cockroach, and they make them bigger down in Texas and the Gulf states.
Isn't that true?
I hear ya. And they tend to fly towards the person who is screaming the loudest. I really do want to do a study on this. Like what is it? Do they know? And also, they're really crap flyers. Okay. So it's like when they're flying, it's almost like I can see them like, I'm sorry. I'm just trying. They can hardly see you. They don't have great eyesight. That's why they come out at night. And when you flip on the lights, they scatter because the roaches really see their world through their antennae and through the hairs on their legs. And so when we can see it that way, when we can see that a palmetto bug can't even really see you. It doesn't care about you. It doesn't want to get eaten. It can change our perspective on that. The person who's afraid of centipedes, we feel you on this. We understand. We tell people that centipedes are one of the only bugs. They're the only bugs that we don't handle because they are fast and they have venom. And in some places, that venom can be quite intense, right? It's not meant for humans. But that venom doesn't make that animal bad. It doesn't make that animal mean. A centipede needs the venom in order to digest its food. It has really weak jaws, just like on spiders. That venom is an external stomach. And so what it does is it paralyzes the prey, makes it go still, and then it liquefies the prey and turns it into like a goop so that they can more easily swallow it. And so it's fascinating what happens when you have like just one little bit of information about them I can see people's brains changing how they're seeing it. Don't touch a centipede. There's no need for any of you to touch a centipede.
Yeah.
Honestly, just don't touch them.
Well,
Don't need to kill them or feed them to your cat. But they, you know, you don't need to touch them, you know.
And that's one of the things that we talk about too, is like, you know, there are some animals that if you don't know how to handle them and you don't know like the potency of their venom, or if they even have venom, just like don't touch them. And, you know, if they are in your ecosystem, they have a place there, and they have a job to do. They have a role to play. And, you know, making sure that those animals are in a place where they can do their job so that everybody is healthy and happy in the environment is also, you know, ties in with that, getting people to be a little bit less afraid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I get it that they're in your house. Like,
yeah. It sounds like the key to empathy, it starts with like learning something about the thing or person that you're afraid of, or maybe the emotions you're dealing with. Maybe it starts with learning something about yourself, but that like knowledge can really shift your perspective in important ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just curious from a perspective of knowing very little about bugs or insects. Is there actually an app or so that helps us identify them so that we can learn something about them? You know, that's often the difficult. We don't know what it even is, right?
Yes, there are tons of great apps. Jess, you've been using one.
Yeah, I've been using an app called Seek, and it is it's in the same database as iNaturalist, which is another great app. But it allows you to use your camera to take a picture of something, and it takes it down to species if possible. But it can oftentimes at least get you in family and genus. So yeah, Seek app is what I've been using. You know, sometimes there's like a margin of error, but for the most part, I've had pretty good results with it.
Yeah, it'll get you in the ballpark. It'll get you in the ballpark. No, now there are some tricky ones. I mean, insects have devised all sorts of ways to trick things that are looking at them. So it might be that you are looking at a bee fly, which is completely harmless, doesn't have any venom at all, is a great pollinator, but the Seek app might say, oh, this is a bee or some kind of native bee or whatever. I want to talk about wasps really quickly. I think that that's a really fascinating one. Sometimes we always get questions about wasps. People tend to love the bees.
Tend to fall in them like me. Yes.
Right. You can fall into a wasp nest. I get it. My mother just fell into a yellow jacket nest.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it was bad. And of course, she calls me then to be like, I fell in a yellow jacket nest. She's from Queens, and that's literally what she sounds like. But so she but like with wasps, a lot of people don't know, if you have a garden, wasps, like yellow jackets, are your best friends because they eat meat. Basically, they are predators, and they are grabbing caterpillars off of your crops and feeding them to their young. So they're like little natural built-in pest control for your garden. And they're better than any spray that you could ever use. They'll find all of the things that are munching on your garden crops. And so learning how to be still. Look, I can't help you if you fall in a nest. You're going to get stung. Honestly, if someone stumbled into your house in the middle of the night uninvited, something's going to happen to them. You know what I mean? Like this is how it goes. And unfortunately, sometimes we're going to be stung. But if we can kind of zoom out a little bit and go, okay, I like literally fell into their home. Like I get that, you know? But they do play a role. And what Jessica said about the role in the ecosystem is really important. They play really important roles.
Yeah. And so something I learned recently is that wasps don't sting people nearly as much as they think they do. Like one can potentially sort of touch one while it's on like a flower or whatever, and not get stung. Don't do it. I'm not telling you to do that, but you know, a thing that you can do. And the same goes for many bees. And we have a comment from Kathy here about there were a few dozen bees that stayed in my bird bath all summer, and they could swim if they fell in. And when I filled it daily, they never stung me. Why? So it sounds like both bees and wasps maybe don't sting as much as we think. Is that true?
Yeah.
Yeah, because they sting if they feel threatened, and they sting if they think their nest or their hive is threatened. And so, in the bird bath, it's in, I would imagine that those animals just didn't feel threatened because they were there for a drink and nothing was touching them, nothing was smacking at them, nothing was swatting. And so it was, good for everybody.
Wasps, like paper wasps. I'm really into paper wasps. And did you know that they can train paper wasps to take a little bit of dynamite in sugar water, and then they can smell bombs in airports. And you can train a wasp in 5 minutes, and it takes a bomb dog years to learn this, right? They have many, many, many more times more smell receptors than dogs do, but people don't like to walk through an airport and have wasps flying around, right? If we could just change, like the Army should just hire us, right? Like TSA should just hire us to do like PSAs for TSA.
It's interesting. I made this one video. I was filming hummingbirds in slow motion. And one of the best videos I've ever made, and was completely accidental, was the reaction. It's all in high speed, so it's slow motion, of a hummingbird towards a wasp. And it was amazing because you saw details you would never see before, because the time frame for a lot of these insects is completely different to ours, because things, only when you slow them down can you start understanding. I was amazed how the hummingbird had such a fast reaction time, and it flew backwards away from the wasp, dancing around with it. And it's just amazing what you can see when you have a method to do that.
Oh, I love that. My brain is buzzing right now that they live on a different time frame.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. So I'm writing a book right now for young adults about it's like bug biology and a little bit of memoir about how I used to be afraid of bugs and now I've fallen in love with them and they've changed my whole life. And also some sort of self-help exercises to kind of just shift your perspective on things a little bit. And I love that idea that they do live, they're living on a different timeline than we are. They live fast and die young. And also they're living at different speeds, the rates of speed. That's a beautiful,
and different size. They're in like a whole other dimension.
Yeah, they have like a tremendously different perspective than we do, size and time. And so that's like makes them, I imagine, is part of what makes them such great subjects for your classroom, like different programs, right? If you're trying to learn empathy, then why not take this extreme example where you really have to get in the head of like a different type of being? I was curious, could you take us through like your classroom a little bit, like your kind of what you do in the classroom, basically, because I have these pictures here with like kids gathered around doing stuff. I don't really know what it is that they're doing.
Well, we've got a couple of different things that we do with students, right? The different program, which is the image that you have up right now, is sort of it's a digital program that we created. Christy at NSTA had a workshop that she did with science teachers, and it was all about how arthropods can be used in the classroom and used for empathy and used to make these sort of fear to fascination connections. And then over a series of, what, Chris, 3 years, it developed into this different program that we have now. And this is a series of videos, and they're videos about arthropod science. And then we move into these connections with social emotional concepts. We've got like individual exercises, we've got group exercises, there's a project, and we don't necessarily have to be involved. This is something that teachers can use in their classroom. I guess we're technically in it for the videos and stuff. But that is one of the programs that we have for classrooms.
And then we can do these add-on things where if they want to meet the bug chicks, we will bring our live animals in. And what happens is we'll do these programs with students where we sit them down on a floor in front of us. I'm really big on setting up a space for success. I think if you are sitting at your desks, if you're slunched over, the slunched is not a word, but I'm going to go with it.
Now.
I just coined it. If you're slunched over after lunch and you've got stuff and clutter all over your desk, that's blocked from learning. And I don't know if that's science or whatever, but I hate it. So we make them sit on the floor and they sit down. And also it's safer for the animals that they're going to hold, because if you drop an animal with an exoskeleton from any sort of height, it can really damage that animal. And so we're sitting on the floor and we will bring our animals around and we do a big fear talk and we really connect it. We don't leave anything. We sort of make a hard connection there, right? About if you when we came in here, you hated bugs. Now you're really interested in them. What else can we do? Can we use this for math? Can we use this transformation for reading? Can we use this transformation for meeting new people? Or for those of you who are afraid of public speaking, 15 minutes ago, you weren't into it and now you are. This is what it feels like to be engaged, excited, and have your brain awake. And I want you walking through your world with your brain awake and engaged. And I don't leave it to chance. I'm going to tell you what we're doing. But then there are sometimes, like with this picture, this is in the Amazon rainforest. The one where they're down on that white sheet, that's called a beat sheet. And we have this amazing partnership with Celestron. Celestron makes these very famous for their telescopes. They have a telescope on the International Space Station, but they also make these great digital microscopes. And we're sort of their like microscope brand people.
And actually, I have one of them. It's not the ones the kids are holding, but this is the one that we use most often when we're here in the office, because you can swap back and forth and use it as a camera.
Which is swap back and forth. It's amazing.
Could you show it to us a little bit more? Sorry, could you hold it up again now that you're
Yeah. So it's the MicroDirect.
It's so good.
HD.
It's a really great little microscope. And so what we do is we bring these microscopes and we put the students in with these microscopes. And when you get to see something that is at a small scale blown up to a big scale, that is where some real magic happens. So these students are in the Amazon rainforest. We go usually on a regular year, twice a year. We're at a little library in this one, and we have just collected some insects, and they are down with these microscopes. And we don't all speak the same language, but it doesn't matter because we all speak the language of bug. Every kid speaks the language of bug. Jessica and I are fluent in it. We are also sort of fluent in kid. So there's just like this beautiful amalgamation of languages and enthusiasm and joy over these animals.
It's like structured educational chaos.
And
everyone has a great time and everyone leaves like just super excited about what they've found and what they've learned, and plan on doing it the next day.
Yeah.
So is this that same microscope there in the picture now?
This is a different one. This is called the flip view.
Yeah, it's the same microscope as the kids with the beat sheet had in the previous picture.
Okay.
But this is Celestron's handheld version. And so this one's really awesome because you can take it outside. It's pretty hardy. You get it dirty, you get a little bit wet, and it's fine. And you can look at stuff without taking it in.
But it's not connected to the internet. So the students can take a picture, but they're not immediately thinking, where can I upload this? Where can I post this? It keeps the student centered on the subject and the exploration rather than the showcasing of that picture, which I think is important in this day and age. I always tell parents and students, if they've got a phone in the classroom when we're bringing our animals around, look with your eyes and not with your iPhone. I want you to be here experiencing this. I'll take a picture of you holding this bug and you can post it wherever you want, but I want you to be present with this animal. And I think that that's a big thing, is that people don't recognize that arthropods are animals. They are wildlife.
And do you think like zooming in with this camera, like getting a little bit of a closer look, getting more on their level, like just sort of taking away some of that size difference helps them with that step, right?
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. It takes away some of the unknown, right? Because people are afraid of what they don't know, what they've never experienced, what they don't understand. And because arthropods and they're small compared to us, compared to a lion. Like you can see a lion's teeth and you can see a lion's claws and like they're big and you can see all the parts of a lion, but you can't see all the parts of an insect as it's crawling by or as it's flying by. And so it takes away some of that like bad mystery.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that they can be like, oh, okay, well now I know what that is, and now it's a little less frightening.
So talking exactly about the mysteries, what is the most amazing or interesting insect that you ever came across?
That list is long.
We have been so privileged to go to so many beautiful, amazing places. But I think one of the things that we like to do, especially because we teach in the United States, there can be this idea that you have to go somewhere else to see amazing wildlife. This grasshopper
from New Mexico.
Is from New Mexico.
Yeah,
and
and
that plains grasshopper is found in lots of different states. It's not just a desert Southwest grasshopper. So I mean, we've seen walking sticks that are as long as your arm. We've held giant armored ground crickets that eat baby birds out of nests. We've seen, my camel spiders are literally the most amazing animals on the planet. We've seen mantids. I know that Kathy likes mantis. So
we saw a mantid when we were in Kenya. We were up in the Lokachogia region of Kenya. And it must have been, Chris, 6 inches tall. It was one of the biggest mantids I've ever seen. And it was just like hanging out on the ground.
I cried.
And I was like, I thought it was a stick. It was so big.
So we have seen some of the world's most amazing bugs, and we're not done yet. But I think the point is walk outside. And wherever you are, there is wildlife that is mind-bogglingly beautiful.
It is.
And we did a show once, and we're still trying to edit it, and hopefully Amazon will pick it up and let us do another one. We did something called the Sofa Safari a couple of years ago, where we took a vintage velvet green couch and we trailered it across the country and we plopped it into different ecosystems across America. And we inspired kids to get off the couch and explore America's backyard wilderness by showing them that you don't have to go to the rainforest. You don't have to go to Africa to see amazing wildlife. It's here. It's all around you. And inspiring them to put what we call their small eyes on, because really that's the thing. It's like this changing of perspective. It's when you start to love bugs, you walk around your world in a different way. Like you're seeing things moving that you ignored for many years.
Yeah. And because you start to notice them, you start to care about them, I think, a little bit more. And then that empathy building leads to things like conservation and being more aware of your own impact on the ecosystems where they live and on the animals themselves.
Yeah, if anyone's curious for ideas, so until very recently, my roommate was an entomologist, and I'm a biologist. I am actually used to wandering around outside a lot, but she really, by being around her, she would really point out things that I wouldn't otherwise notice. She was paying attention to a different scale than I was. And so questions for, people who are watching this, some like things to get you started, like if you see a bunch of bees and wasps on some flowers on some goldenrod, well, how many different types of wasps can you see on there? Maybe there's probably like 2 or 3 species. Or, what are the insects actually doing? Oh, these 2 assassin bugs are mating. Oh, and now they're not mating anymore. They're just sort of sitting on top of each other. There's like mate guarding happening. And so I was always kind of constantly having these new interesting insect world things pointed out to me. And it definitely takes a little bit of concentrated effort, I think, to get there, but it's very rewarding when you do to have that world open up to you.
Yeah.
I'm curious real quick. So you've told us about some of your amazing insect encounters. What were some really cool classroom encounters, like things that students maybe said to you or revelations they had in the classroom? Are there cool moments like that happening?
Oh my God. Every
so many.
moment. We love people, and especially young people, as much as we love bugs. I think that's something that's just a huge part of our work. Jess, you know the one I always say, so you say it.
About Sophia?
Oh no.
Which one?
Oh, I was thinking about the little boy where he had been really afraid to hold something. I don't even know what he held, but he had been really, really afraid. And I took it from his hand, and I asked him to look at me, and I said, "Hey, how do you feel?" And he looked at me and he said, "I feel like a superhero." And it was like, I'm done. Like, I'm done for the day. I'm going to take the rest of the day off because
take it home.
I'm like, we did it. And then I used to teach at Texas A&M. I used to teach this course called Insects and Human Society. Actually, it was like the greatest course ever. I loved it. And you're teaching college students, And so about 3 weeks into the class, I had a guy come up to me, one of my students, and he was like, "Hey, I took this picture the other night. I was at this party, right? And like this bug flew down. And I took this picture." And he's like talking and talking and talking. And I looked at him and I was like, "Jackson, stop. You're at a college party. You're 20 years old. I'm not going to ask you what you were doing at this party, but you're taking pictures of bugs and teaching people at a college party about bugs." And I'm like, "Do you know what's happening here?" And he's like, "Oh my God." And I'm like, "Yeah, you're a bug dork. Like, welcome to the club." This happens all the time. It doesn't matter what age. Jess, will you tell the story of the old man with the tarantula?
Yeah. Actually, that was the next one. That was the one that was in my head. So Chris and I, we had this kind of like outlier workshop that we did in Oregon, and it was for a nursing home. And we haven't done many of those. I think actually this was the only one, but we went in and we did like our full workshop with this group in a nursing home. And we were packing up to leave. And this one gentleman came over and he was like, "I have always wanted to hold a tarantula. Will you let me hold your tarantula?" And usually when people ask us that, we're like, "No, it's if you're not used to it, it's kind of dangerous for the animal and we don't want you to drop it. And we just want everybody to leave with a good experience." But this guy was like, "I have always wanted to do it." He was like 93 or something like that.
He was
and we
in
were
his
like
90s.
Yeah.
And we were like,
we were like, "Yeah,
dude?
sure." We're like, "Have a seat.
You're not going to sue us. Let's rock it out,
And he held out his hands and we put the spider in his hands, and it was Cookie Monster, wasn't it? It was the jumping tarantula. And it was like popping around his hands, and it was kind of like working its way up his arm. And he was laugh crying. And he was like, "This is the greatest thing. Thank you so much. This is like the best moment of my life."
That's
and
what
Christy
he
and I
said.
we were like
I mean, he's bawling. We're bawling. The staff is bawling. Like, there's like snot and tears. It was like pre-pandemic. It was like a whole deal. And I snapped a picture of him. Holding this tarantula, and the look on his face. And sometimes when you're having a bad day, because honestly, at the end of the day, Jess and I run a small business, and there are so many of these beautiful moments that we have gotten to witness and that we have facilitated, that sometimes when you run a small business and you have student loans and you feel like you're not big enough, or you don't have enough of a following, or you're never going to, accomplish this or whatever, it's good to remind ourselves of those kinds of moments, because it doesn't matter if you have 5 followers or 2 million followers or whatever. It does, like, that stuff is fake. What is real is that shriek giggle, that crying giggle from that man, or the kid saying, "I feel like a superhero." Like, that is a real moment, and that will affect like that little boy who felt like a superhero now knows what it feels like and can tap into that and knows that he is capable of that. And I've never seen that boy again. He is now probably in high school, but I know it has an effect on people. And
Well,
I'm just
we
honored
taught,
to do this work.
yeah, and we taught a summer STEM experience for a local school here, where we are over the summer, and there were like 6 kids, 8 kids, something like that in it, and there was one young lady in particular who was over school, and she was over like science. Her parents were pushing her to go to college and she didn't want to. She's like, I just want to go to like Europe and like ignore everything and just do my own thing. And she went through this camp with us, and it was all about like the process of science and arthropods, of course, and some social emotional concepts. But at the end of it, we went with them because they stood up in front of the school board to talk about their experience. And she was like, because of this program, I've decided to go to college, and I'm really excited about like marine biology, and I can't wait to become a scientist and like do science as my life. And Christy and I were like,
look, there's a lot of crying with the bug chicks. There's a lot of crying that happens. Yeah, I mean, that kind of stuff happens all the time. Our thank you notes are delightful. And it just reminds us about gratitude and also about zooming out. Like when I'm having a bad day about our business, you got to zoom out. Sometimes you got to zoom in and sometimes you got to zoom out.
yeah.
And
I would just like to ask you quickly about the word business, because you mentioned it a few times, and this is, of course, the reality of the world that you're running this channel. You're probably relying a lot on donation support and so on, which I know is very difficult, because I mean this is something we all go through. And so how is it actually going after all these years? Probably not that easy, but how do you see the future? How are you going to change things? How do you innovate all the time so that you come to the next stage?
Mm-hmm. That's so interesting. I have not worked for anyone else but us, me, the business, our business, since 2011. And I feel like that is kind of amazing. Jessie left for 5 years to go work somewhere, but she was still working with the Bug Chicks. Now we are back full time again. The team is back
Together, the band's back together.
And with this new curriculum, which we are selling to school districts, or writing grants, writing for grants with a school district. That's a way that sometimes this works. That becomes our new way of doing things. We would love to go into classrooms every single day and teach, but it is very difficult to keep up that pace. And also the emotional investment that we bring to the teaching, what we give in a teaching situation is not sustainable in order to be able to support 2 people full time. So innovation is a big part of what we do. We actually don't take donations. We're a for-profit business, and sometimes we're like, should we have been a nonprofit?
There's pros and cons,
There's
right?
pros and cons. What are you going to do?
Yeah. I actually, if you don't mind, I wanted to highlight your website while we're here and just do a screen share, just so people can see, like, it's really laid out, like, kind of what you're offering. And so let me just set this up, and you can just talk a little bit about it as I.
Business is going way well. Like lots of people after the pandemic, we're kind of shifting. We were already shifting into this how can we duplicate ourselves? It's very difficult. Right. When people want to hire us and our energy, it can be difficult to duplicate ourselves. So that's what the different curriculum is. And
I was actually thinking, because of COVID and the whole thing, a lot of businesses have boomed because of that, going through Zoom. So I was just wondering, are you going down that route?
Oh yeah, we teach a lot on Zoom for sure. I think what's next for us is getting this curriculum into as many districts as possible. It's already in 2, and it's being taught by individual teachers all over the world, actually. And we're very excited about that. And then what's next for us is getting back into some of our creative roots. We are pitching our show again. I think it's, again, still always time for women to be teaching about bugs on TV, in whatever kind of TV that means nowadays. And also, we're writing, and we're
super interested in podcasts.
We think we want a podcast. It's fun. We're having a lot of fun. We're guests on lots of podcasts, and honestly, we give good podcasts. We really like it. We really like to do this kind of talking, and I mean, obviously, I talk too much. So yeah,
Never.
Someone asked in the questions, Cookie Monster the tarantula. I'm going to have to ask how you come up with these names.
That was me.
That was you. Hi.
It was such a beautiful story, but I get sidetracked by things like that. It's a Cookie Monster.
Well, I don't know, Jessie. I'm going to try and do a screen share here.
Yeah.
Outside of the photos that we.
Yeah.
Go for if that's okay with you.
Mm-hmm.
So Jess, why don't you talk a little bit, and I'll grab these photos for us, babe.
So our names, sometimes students get to name our bugs, and sometimes the arthropods name themselves. You know, like Cookie Monster is a pink toe tarantula, and when she was a little spiderling, she was this really bright Cookie Monster blue all over. And so, you know, we looked at her and we're like, oh, she's like Cookie Monster. And then we were like, okay, well, that's her name. So
did you pass that off? Like, the kids named her that. We let kids name our bugs. But
no. We're taking total credit for that one. We named that one. Yeah. But like, you know, sometimes we'll have like, you know, 5 or 6 beetles that were going around, and the students were like, what are their names? Because at that point we've already introduced like 3 or 4 of our other animals with names already. And we're like, oh, well, these don't have names. And then the kids will be like, let's name this one Jelly Bean, and let's name this one, you know, whatever. And so, yeah, sometimes the kids get to name them, and sometimes it's us.
My system preferences wouldn't let me share my screen, which is fine. We can share that with you. We can share that with your audience, I'm sure, in a different way, maybe.
And it was actually, Christian, about the same color as your shirt.
Yeah.
Just a little bit darker.
She's bright blue. And then Beyonce is our curly hair tarantula, who we named Beyonce because A, Beyonce is fabulous, and B, she's the star of the show in whatever show she's in.
Yep.
And when you go, okay, well, we'd like to bring out our tarantula killer fangs, people are like, I don't want to meet killer fangs. But if you say, we're going to bring out our tarantula Beyonce, everyone wants to meet Beyonce.
Absolutely.
Her power is so incredible that people are like, I hate spiders, but now I have to see this.
But it's Beyonce.
And so again, that kind of goes into that what's in a name thing. The names that we give things can have real power. The words that we use to describe things. So we ask students for the next hour, change creepy to interesting. Change ooh to cool. Change gross to fascinating, and you will be amazed what happens with your energy and with the openness with which you learn. And if you say, I always do this thing with students, I can't, I won't, I'm not, I don't. We're going to change it to I can, I will, I am, I'll try, just for the next hour.
Yeah.
And it is amazing the shift that happens. And we all need that reminder, even as adults, we need that reminder of the words that we use have power. Kids are listening to us, and we are listening to us. Mm-hmm. And the words can be shifted towards a positive bent to help us move through difficult times.
Yeah, I think that's a really great example of how, you're not just teaching empathy, you really are teaching a lot of emotional intelligence skills. I saw something on your website too about how some of your curriculum can help students get more comfortable talking and thinking about questions that don't necessarily have an answer.
Yes.
Could you talk a little bit more about that and how you do that?
So Jessica mentioned earlier that we have these 10 videos and then we have individual stuff. So let me give you an example of one of our videos. We'll do blending in, right, Jess?
Yeah.
So blending in is where we teach the biology of crypsis or camouflage, where you blend into your environment or you blend into each other. So there are arthropods that have stripes on them and they blend into each other and you can't tell where one starts and one ends, right? And so we talk about the biological construct of that and how that works in survival situations for walking sticks and stick bugs and leaf insects and things like this. And then we turn the questions around and we say, have you ever blended in so far that you felt like you disappeared? Because voicelessness for girls, especially starting around age 9, that becomes a huge issue for young girls in classrooms, voicelessness, because they're not at that point trying to impress boys at that point, and some of them are not trying to impress boys, but it's about peers with other girls, right? And so you become voiceless. And you think, oh, girls aren't supposed to do science, or girls aren't supposed to speak up, or all these different things.
Yeah. Girls are supposed to be afraid of bugs.
Girls are supposed to be afraid of bugs. Yeah. And also, one of the questions that we ask is, have you ever blended in to a group and the group does something that you don't agree with? Do you feel you have agency to speak up? Because as you get into the older teen years, we have students going to parties and incidents happen at these parties and things are being filmed and there's a bystander effect because now we all have ways to film things, but we forgot that we always had a way to speak up to stop something. And so those are the questions that we ask. Now, it doesn't always have to go so deep. Sometimes it can be, are there words that you use that you'd like to scratch from your vocabulary? I was on a panel earlier today for the Entomological Society, and someone said, oh, I'm just a student. And if I could scratch one word, it would be the word just. Oh, I just have a master's. Oh, I'm just a girl. Oh, I just called to ask. Or it's a weakening word. It's a diminishing word. And so those are the questions that we ask.
Yeah. Well said, Kay.
Yeah, those are really powerful stories and examples. Gosh, I feel like I feel like you could go, up and up in age range with those lessons. And so,
I just have a question more about your traveling, because I've traveled all my life. You mentioned Kenya, and then you mentioned the Amazon, and so on. Is there a favorite place that you have where you really like to travel?
Well, Peru is definitely on the list. Where we go there, we have new family there. Like the people that the people that we work with down there are very, very near and dear to our hearts. And Christy is I think she's a Kenya girl all the way.
Yeah, I've been to Kenya 3 times now. I've probably lived there almost for a year. I want to do more. And I always say, like, I went the first time for the animals, but I keep going back for the people. And I have real family there, and that's the whole thing. Your whole show is about humans and wildlife. And at this point, I think we recognize that no wildlife is going to make it without humans either taking action or stopping the actions that we're having. And, we are capable as humans of such incredible feats. And we are also capable of such, I'm going to drop this word. Are you ready, Jess?
I'm ready.
Struthious behavior. It's my favorite word. Of or pertaining to ostrich, where we head in the sand about a great many things. And
there's also a very self-centeredness about humans. It's like, if it's good for us, it doesn't matter if it's bad for other things. And I think that being able to step back from that and recognize that we are actually part of a whole and not separate from it, that that is a big issue.
Yeah. Kenya for me is in my heart. I never knew what home felt like until I went there, which sounds so stupid because I'm not from there. But as a traveler, I'm sure you understand there are some times where you just are like, oh, this is a really special place to me. And I don't know why, but this place, I feel it. Yeah.
That
Well,
was very, very interesting. Thank you.
yeah, I love those sentiments. I just want to say thank you so much, Christy and Jessica, for joining us. And thank you so much to Bo and David and Peter and Pablo for giving us awards during the show.
Yeah.
I think that this discussion with the bug chicks has given me a lot of things to think about how, you know, getting closer to the bugs can help give us a sense of empathy, but also like it sounds like using the bugs as a metaphor can create a little bit more emotional space when we need it to process things that are difficult. So I think that you both gave me a lot of interesting things to think about in terms of scales of closeness and like emotional intelligence and how the insects can just really help facilitate that. It's so cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I wanted to say something similar because I mean, my passion is photography, especially slow motions. And so I've done some insect photography, but you've definitely piqued mine again. So I think you won't have to hold your breath for very long, and you'll see some more videos from me coming up of all kinds of fascinating angles that you may have never seen before.
Excellent.
I'm so looking forward to that. Yeah, we've loved this. This has been a really lovely discussion to have, and thank you
Absolutely.
for asking us to join.
Yeah, and thanks also to the audience of being so engaged. Really wonderful. So many questions, and really thanks to both of you because you've made it so interesting. And I really wish you lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of success. And I know it's difficult, but I admire your tenacity and your passion, and also what you say about conservation of wildlife and human beings. That is very deep, and I really wish you all the best for and a lot of success.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And also, be sure to check out the Bug Chicks website. And then where can people find you on social media?
Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We're at the Bug Chicks everywhere. And honestly, we're thinking about starting a TikTok. We're going to do some silly little bug videos.
We have an account, so feel free to join it. There's nothing on it yet.
Yep.
But there will be.
We're going to relive our youth on TikTok, and it's going to be awesome.
That's great.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Jessica and Christy, for joining us. Christian, well, that was episode 11 done. And we had back-to-back vampire bats and then insects. We're really going after the animals that some people don't like. But yeah, please join both of us next week for another episode of the Humans and Wildlife Show.
Yeah, and thanks so much, everyone, for joining. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.